This is week 10, part 1, recording to the cloud. A few little writing tips before. Here's Paula. Again, this is Paula, for your sake. This is week 10, part 1, Paula. No one is here yet who's a PhD student. And they are supposed to be face-to-face. No one is. So I wonder where they all are, but hey, we'll get started. So I'm going to do part of 6 of my writing tips, a little bit of part 6. Before we get started, I want to give some logistical things for the rest of the semester. This week we have Dr. Hitchcock, who's one of the prominent people around the world in terms of mixed methods design, and has a couple of books related to mixed method design. He'll be talking about them and responding to any question you have. Last semester when he came, or maybe it was last spring when he came. Maybe it was last fall. Yeah, I taught this last fall. He answered every single student's question. I mean, every single one, he gave them something that they could get in terms of their dissertation. And it was very helpful. I assume it will be the same tonight. Next week, we have Dr. Turan Wong, who's an alum of the Language Ed program here and got her minor in IST, maybe a master's in IST. She ran her makerspace. She'll be talking about presenting, defending a dissertation, communicating with your committee members, collecting data for your dissertation, all sorts of things we've heard about before, but from her perspective. In the following week, we'll hear from Dabe Lee and Yul Ha, husband and wife, former alums of IST, now at Kennesaw State. For a while, they had a commuter marriage because Yul was working in Korea while Dabe was working in Kennesaw State. And before that, they were at Emporia State in Kansas together. And they'll talk about how to create a effective writing space for work. And I'll talk about my writing space as well. The week after that, Maina Ju and I will talk about our writing tips that I haven't spoken on yet. And she'll talk about, from an early career scholar, how to be successful. I think Yul and Dabe will talk about that as well. That will be week 13. And week 14, we'll have one-to-one meetings again with me. And week 15, you'll present what aspects of your dissertation that you want to talk about. You'll present to others in this class, in effect. And last semester, it was a really effective day. It was a real lot of fun that day. Final presentations, that's April 25th. That will take us to week 15 in here. So 5 weeks after tonight, we have 6 weeks counting tonight. So 5 weeks from tonight is our final class in here. You'll notice that I changed a couple of due dates, or at least grace periods. The grace period for task 4, analysis plan, is a 6-day grace period. So March 21st to March 27th, you have a full 6 days to get that in, from Tuesday, March 21st, which is tonight, all the way to next Monday night. The task 6 and 7, the blog journal or reflections or reading reflections, or the quals practice, task 7, or interviewing a former student, both of those were due April 4th. With a 3-day grace period, they're now 6-day grace period to April 10th. I did not change the draft of the prospectus, which was April 11th or April 18th. You already have 7 extra days. I'm sure we could find a couple more days if you need it beyond April 18th, maybe 2 or 3. The 3-day grace period will still exist, but not a 6-day grace period, I think. Okay, if that's not confusing enough, let me know what is, and I'm sure I could create some confusion. And now we have Vanessa in the room here. So we have one face-to-face person with us in the room here. Thank you, Vanessa. If I was unclear as that there was an in-person, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure maybe I just sent it to the class and not to everybody. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Who nudged you here? Who told you? Just now? Okay. So I will share some writing tips here, and then Dr. Hitchcock will be here in 20 minutes, and he'll take over. In Bloomington here, we have his slides. There are only 10 of them. I've had as a handout. Remotely, you'll have to go to Dropbox and download them, or I can send an email with the slides in them after class just remind me, Barbara or Tina, they're there, and I will do that. So again, now this 10-part talk on called the G3 of writing, I have selected different sections in here every week, or pretty much every week. This one comes from an article that was written in Inside Higher Ed by Christine Tully. What do professors do during writing sessions? Well, what do we do? What don't we do? I can tell you that during the past week, I was editing a lot, proofreading a lot, because we had 2 articles accepted, journal articles I've got galley proofs on, and 1 book chapter, and 3 or 4 other articles need to be rewrote. So some professors have an ease-in period. And let me tell you, today, right before driving my car here, I had an ease-in session. I was really going at it. I was doing final checks on a document that was accepted for publication. I didn't want to get out of my chair. I got to go home and finish it now. But Christian was meeting me to test the equipment, so I had to go. And Christian, thank you for coming to the session to test. This room is lovely. Everything's working. So some things that professors do is just have note cards, which I passed out here in Bloomington, or have sticky notes or Post-its or all sorts of things on a wall, or have a timeline or some kind of concept mapping. Some professors like to put brackets in the text itself, like the indicators of what's left to complete, what they need to define, what they might create a visual of. They make little side notes or Post-it or brackets to themselves within the paper itself, little annotations. I do that sometimes. My colleagues do that more than me. They put brackets in all the time for what I could potentially fill in. Some people create a planning aid of some kind, for instance, using Trello, which is a group-based planning tool to show how far you've progressed in terms of the task. Some people read their previous session, take a look at the paper and what's written in front of them, and then they say, they got a new idea or something they hadn't thought about. And so they go back and revise it. Other people say, well, it sounds pretty darn good, so I'll just pick up where I left off. So going back and rereading, maybe rereading aloud, maybe having a computer read it to you. Now we have all these text-to-speech translation tools. That's a really effective metacognitive aid when you can hear the voice of somebody else speaking your text to you. And I often am impressed. I don't want to sound too egotistical, but I'm often more impressed hearing my papers than when I read them. I'm usually really critical just looking at them. I say, that's junk, But when I hear it played back a few months later, it sounds better than I thought I wrote. And so try to use those text-to-speech tools. Highlight sections in different colors, maybe sections that maybe need reworking in green or in yellow or some other color. That blue is often very kind of blue, might be indicating that it's pretty good stuff, but it could be better. Maybe yellow means it's an okay stuff and it definitely needs to be better. And maybe red means, it's pretty junky stuff. You might want to get rid of it. And then review all the co-author comments that you've been getting. Take a look at them. Take a look at reviewer comments. I don't leave reviewer comments in front of me for a long period of time. I look at them, I circle them, I make my notes. Usually my colleagues make a list of the things that we have to do in the revisionary tables. And I usually let my colleagues take a first crack at the revision table. I will if I'm first author, but typically I'm second author. I like to take a crack at it after they've done and look at the reviewer comments and then try and improve them and try and massage them and find, so you can find your niche in there. But don't obsess on reviewer comments. Look at them, summarize them, and move on. And then go back to them when you've made the revision table and so forth. I've put examples in Dropbox of revision tables. How do professors move on during writing session? Well, some like words. How many words per day? 750 words a day? Vanessa's sitting here, she likes 10,000 words. No, I don't know. She likes, how many words? 2 pages of text might be good. 1 page of text might be good. Or your goal might be to revise 5 pages in the next couple of hours. You might have a 20-page manuscript in front of you. You might spend most of Sunday revising the manuscript and take, a section of it every couple of hours. Some try the Pomodoro method, which has already been presented in here a couple of weeks ago. I'll talk about it briefly in here. Some set a timer. I'm increasingly using timers not for paper writing, but for grading, because I tend to give a fair bit of feedback and I need to sometimes move on. But you can use a timer for writing. It's not served me well, but different tools for different people. Some have specific things, targets, objectives for their writing activity, to rewrite the method section, to rewrite the conclusions, to rewrite the limitations. That might be a pretty good strategy, I think, to say, hey, I haven't done the limitations section of my dissertation. Now's the time to take a look at that. It's very constrained and confined. 2 days ago, I took a paper that didn't have a limitations session. One of my students sent me, and I wrote the limitations section. Didn't take me long, but it was really important for the paper and for my team to have that section done. Then I took a crack at the future directions. Some people like take a crack at the, part of the literature review. Literature review is the hardest part, oftentimes. So you can set some writing goals for yourself. You maybe have there's something called Prolifico. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe Vanessa can look that up. Maybe Barbara can look that up, where you can have a productivity writing coach. I think productivity writing coaches and career counseling coaches are going to increase in importance over the next decade as we're getting inundated with all these open educational resources, all these opportunities to write, all these journals out there and so forth. We're going to get confused by all the possibilities to publish, to collect data and all this. So we're going to need coaches. We're going to need mentors. Some people really need deadlines to work from and work backwards from those deadlines. And that's why the journals will say, we need this back by April 15th, or we need this back in 2 months. And that happened to us last week with my team. They wanted a paper back within 48 hours. And today it was published. And so I said, hurrah, we abided by their deadline. So try to abide by those deadlines that someone else has set, or that you set, or your team sets. But don't set too many deadlines. One at a time, maybe 2 different deadlines. Don't get so caught up in the deadline that you lose your train of thought in terms of the substance of what you're writing, the flow of your writing. Deadlines are important to get you energized and going, and maybe a donut or two. I don't eat donuts, but some people like to have a donut. Some people like a little bit of chocolate, which I brought in here. And then some people like writing groups and to share revisions within their groups. The School of Ed is using that for faculty right now. I'm not one who works well within writing groups and outside my own teams. I don't tend to talk to other people outside my teams about what I'm writing, what I'm doing. Some people like the Pomodoro method because it sets up a focus 25 minutes and then a break, focus 25 minutes and then a break. Encourages you to spend your workday in these 25-minute workout sessions, kind of like working out at the gym, I guess, in some ways. So you set your timer for 25 minutes, you work until the timer goes off, take a break, and then come back and do the next section. Okay. For me, no, it doesn't work. For many people, oh yeah, it works extremely well. So again, these are all different ideas in effect out there. What are professors doing during writing sessions? What if they don't feel like writing? Well, you can tell yourself you'll only write for 5 minutes and get coerced you into that. Or if what I do to myself, if you write or edit 2 or 3 pages, you get a dilly bar. I really like dilly bars, and so I write or edit my 2-3 pages. So reward yourself with dilly bars. Some people reward themselves with social media postings or other kinds of things they might have within the class. I see Jiyoung is with us. Hi, Jiyoung. Save small tasks for when you have lower motivation. The easy tasks for when you just can't get started. And that happens to me all the time. I procrastinate like anyone else really badly. And I oftentimes can't get going. I'll go look outside, look at the deer play in the backyard, whatever it is, instead of starting on the paper. I'll go up and refill my tea. I'll drink the tea and I'll go refill it again. I just agonize over the starting time. Once I'm started, everything's going good. So maybe save some easy things to start back up on. If you've written up your ideas on a marker board or a whiteboard, take pictures of it so you don't lose the train of thought that you have, those starter text items. I have a standing desk. I have a hydraulic standing desk. I highly recommend that because it changes the environment on the fly. You can stand up, You can sit down, you can go in between, whatever you would like, but at least you're moving about and you're getting your body to stretch a little bit, and so you don't kill your back or your brain or your fingers. I think just it changes your environment. Or use your kitchen, use your balcony, or whatever. Go to the cafe, go to Starbucks, go to the Indiana Memorial Union, go try something different. Panera is good. Walk around your neighborhood, your school, your campus, your organization, your city. Walk around to get ideas, and then plop down on a desk somewhere on a park bench. Park bench is probably the best place because that's breaking you out of the routines of writing. Have a free pass for no writing once a month. Again, I'm not sure this will work for me, but maybe this will work for you. You could say, or maybe 5 free passes, to yourself. And there's 5 days every month I'm not going to write. And I'm going to use these, just like letting kids take 1 quiz off or 2 quizzes off. Leave the document open and then write in short bits, in short bursts of steam. So leave the document open at all times and you can always go back to it. Now, I do this in some ways. I leave the document open for a long period of time. I don't often constantly come back and touch it. I try and get it done, but some people like to tinker, like Beethoven tinkered with his music. Some people are Beethovenians when they write. Some are Mozartians and write it all down at once. Some people are combiners. Hire a writing coach or some kind of writing accountability service. There are tools you can get to keep you going, to keep you from going to social media. You might find those advantageous for you as well. Oh, what brings joy to you and happiness? Why don't you write in the chat window, what brings you happiness in writing? And I'll read them in a little bit. 8 motivational tips for dissertation writing. Then by that time, Dr. Hitchcock will be with us to get you disciplined for writing, persevering in writing, and just generally motivated to get the project done. Alyssa Modalo from Inside Higher Ed, 2 years ago, now 2.5 years ago, had this article, 8 motivational tips for dissertation writing. Motivational Post-its or slogans in the room. These are slogans you can put in your room. Start 1 line at a time or 1 page at a time. You can just put this on sticky notes. You can have a seat, John. Dr. Hitchcock is here. June. And we've got most people are showing up online. Of my PhD students, not a single one are here yet. Well, we're hopeful they'll show up at 6 when they knew you were coming. Start with 1 line at a time. That could be a note on your wall. Obsessing is not progressing. Another note on the wall. Finished is better than perfect. Another note on the wall. We're all obsessed about perfection, when we write. Writing is never done. Even when you're turning it in, even when you get it back, there's going to be tons of comments. Even after you've had it reviewed once, twice, 3 times, you can still make it better. Don't get over obsessed about one little change that you haven't made. Just turn the paper in and try and get it reviewed. They're not expecting you to be perfect. None of your reviewers are. Now, once in a while, you will have a jerk who's a reviewer, and you just have to put that aside and just send it to me and say, Dr. Bonk, is this normal to get something like this? And I'll say, no, it's not normal. And just, you have to maybe move on to another journal. But I tend not to recommend going to new journals. I try recommending, make all the points suggested and try again, try a second time or a third time. After 3 times it hasn't been accepted, then maybe move on is the wise decision. Interruptions happen. Could be another Post-it note on your wall, a little sticky note, a little motto. That's life. Working backwards. Increasingly in IST, I see people talk about working backwards, backward design model. So the same is true in writing sometimes. We have to think about what we're intending to write and work back to the beginning and look for the gaps in our thinking, in our notes and what we've written so far. The most you can do is your best. That's another little motto or slogan you could have on your wall. Just do the best. Just do whatever you possibly can do to improve your paper, and then you leave it at that. You will get better as a writer. So your best today is not your best tomorrow. It's not your best, not your best 2 years from now. Hejong is showing up. Hejong, how are you, Hejong? So every year you're becoming a better writer if you persist, if you stay positive, if you stay connected to your research team. Celebrate your accomplishments, most definitely. You know, I hope Dr. Hitchcock and I are going out for a little celebration after he presents tonight, because we had a little celebration day, because today was my day 1,996 of running, 3 years in a row. Today is my day of 3 years podcasting in a row. March 21st, 2020 was the opening day. So I'm going to celebrate with a little refreshment, as we say. And I got passed around here. If you didn't get any, we've got Chinese, we've got American, white, so I will fudge and other things down. Motivational tip number 8. Why do you like it? Well, why don't I? Why do I like it? Number 1, start with one line, 1 page. 1 is better than 0 page. You can fixate on that first paragraph, that first sentence, that first page. 1 is better than none. Procrastination won't get you anywhere. Try to get at least some starter text down. And often that starter text might come from a quote from a previous paper that wasn't accepted or might have been deleted. I save cut text from previous papers, and I use that as starter text for the next paper. And I often won't end up using that, but that sentence, that paragraph, that page that was deleted in another paper could help me in the next paper. Obsessing is not progressing. Leave a time. It says leave a timed obsession period brief for sweating the details. So sweat for a bit, go out and hike. I go running in the morning. I sweat about my paper. I think about it in my head. I get lots of ideas when I'm jogging. I get lots of ideas in the shower. I get lots of ideas sitting outside on my back deck. And sweat it out for a little bit, but then go, take a dive into your paper and focus and have a cup of tea next to you, have some berries. I really recommend having some health food wrapped around you. So when you are in the midst of a flow, you don't have to run back to the fridge or go back upstairs or somewhere else. You can keep going. You can keep, and those strawberries, those blueberries, those raspberries, I think I've generated more thought as a result of that than any other food item next to me. Of course, having proper lubrications like water is important. Got one for Dr. Hitchcock, in fact. So get things done instead of refining those small details over and over and over. Get it done, and then go back and revise the whole paper later. Just get it out, get it flow out, write the method section, write the conclusions, write the future directions, one piece at a time, not the whole thing, and then put it together and then rewrite it. Some days you're going to write more than you expected, but most days you're going to write less than you expected. Staying positive and just say, oh, I'll get to it next time. Don't focus on the things you didn't get to. Look at how you can kind of turn that into tomorrow's possibilities. Always stay kind of looking at the new and the possibilities for generating in another day. Be open to adjusting the schedule. Have a timeline, but have timelines be flexible. Never have a timeline be so regimented that you basically are punishing yourself, right? If you don't meet that the timeline that you set up for yourself. Constantly revise it. Put it on your refrigerator. Put your timeline on the garage door. Put the timeline on your desk, or maybe hide it in the closet and take a look at it once a week. Wherever that timeline is valuable to you, make it available for yourself. On my wall at home, I have 6 calendars. I got February, March, April, May, June, and July. I'll wrap around my home office. And I think about what I'm going to work on in March, what I'm going to work on in April, and so what I did work on in February. And then I flip the calendar at the end of every month. I have 2 calendars with this month's on it, one in front of me, one to the side. Work backwards, write your introduction at the end, maybe. I once taught a class where I didn't introduce myself to the last minute of the class on week 15. Well, the same is true of your writing. You might not put your name on the paper until you're done with the whole darn paper. I often will start, by the way, I read dissertations backwards. I will start with your future directions and your literature review, especially if you have a complicated literature review. I will start with the future directions and your limitations and your discussion and your method, and then I'll read your literature review. If it's really complicated, I might figure it out from reading all these other parts, right? Well, same is true of writing a paper. You could write them. In fact, you should be writing your dissertation limitations before you write the whole other thing. You know what they are. It's the easiest thing to write. You should, in fact, you can write your future directions before you write up your dissertation. It's one of the easiest things to write. You know what you didn't do and what's possible. And then you can focus on what you did do. And then you'd have 2 sections done. They're short sections. You'd feel mentally really confident about proceeding. I have 3 more, John. So, the most you can do is your best. It says, well, try to give your best, and then, be at peace with yourself. Don't blame someone else. Don't blame something else. Don't blame the weather. Don't blame the loss of electricity that day. There's pen and paper that still exists out there. You can still do your best with pen and paper, or with your laptop, last hour of battery juice that's in it, whatever. Give it your best shot in all formats, and then, have your dilly bars, which I love. Have, your mental break, but give it your best instead of trying to blame someone else. It's a growth mindset approach to writing, right? Take time off when needed to get a massage, to get your decompression, to go to, sit in a hot tub, or go swimming pool, or go for a hike, or go for a run, or whatever it is that you need to have. You're making progress on that paper, even when you're on a hike, when you're on a walk, when you're at the store, when you're at the airport. I often make my best connections when I'm sitting in an airport concourse, as long as I write them down. So if you get stuck, focus on those things that are enjoyable. What portion do you like to write? If you're on a team, tell your team members, I really like writing the method section. Okay, then write the methods. Vanessa likes the method. We had, Young will write the literature review, right? And Heijang, she'll write the future directions. Whatever you're good at, tell your team that that's what you'd like to focus on. And then, as I said, my habits, my rituals are to have some berries, have some health drinks, have some celery. Today I had a thing of celery, thing of carrots, thing of berries, apple, tea. I don't drink coffee anymore. Health drinks, and then dilly bars at the end to reward. So it's healthy food all the way until the end. And then maybe grab the plantains or chips, or when you've satisfied that you've gotten something from it. So those are some things for this week's writing tips. Hopefully you got some ideas for your writing. I want to see if there are questions from anyone here before we move on. So any comments or questions that anyone would like to pose before we go to Dr. Hitchcock? Everyone's quiet coming back from break. Not only do we have no one coming face to face to greet me in a lovely room with free food. Let me repeat, those of you who came a little bit late, next week. So this week, Dr. John Hitchcock is with us here. We'll talk about mixed method design. Next week, Charan Wong will talk about dissertation defenses and communicating with your committee, as well as presenting your dissertation to that committee. Dabe Lee and Yul Ha at Kennesaw State will talk about early career people and how they write and their writing space that they have, and how they work around the 2 children that they have at home. And then Maina Ju and I will talk a bit about our writing space and give our final 10 tips of writing for all of you. Maina has been very successful. She's got 40 publications in the first 3 years at Wayne State University, journal publications and a book. It's amazing. Never seen it before. And then we'll hear from myself. We'll have one-to-one consulting meetings on week 14, April 18th. And then week 15, you will all present back to the guests from week 1. We had Jennifer Park with us. We had Charisse with us from Granada. The 2 of them will come back and listen to your progress with your dissertations and hear what you are, what you've been doing and what you hope to do. Any comments there on the next 6 weeks, or counting today? As I said in my email, your grace period has been extended from 3 days to 6 days. So your paper that's due today, task 4, is due next Monday, grace period. Okay. Also, tasks 6 and 7 due April 4th are now due April 10th with a 6-day grace period, or any time in that time span. I have not changed the task 5 draft of your proposal. It should say proposal/prospectus. It's really a prospectoposal. It's not a full proposal. It's more than a prospectus. That is due April 11th or April 18th. You have 2 different days. Basically we have a 7-day grace period. I've not changed that one. Any questions there? I think we have one thing in the chat window here. So let's see what's in there. And Tina says, exercise before, music during, and beer and chocolate after. That's a pretty good motto. We should put that on the wall here, Tina. And Tina's out in Greene County where they have good beer, don't they, Tina?
Yes. My friend owns a brewery out here, so.
Tell us about the brewery.
It's called Feed Store Beer Company, and he literally converted a feed store into a brewery. So, and he has food trucks out there, because finding people to do a restaurant was too much. So the food truck model worked really well, since we don't really have many restaurants except for Subway and a Mexican place. So it brings in like a bunch of different places here, and everybody seems to like it. So they get to worry about the beer and somebody else worries about the food.
How long a drive from IU to get to that place if I was to bring people?
45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap up part 1 here and stop this to the cloud. Stop the recording. Part 1, week 10, we're done.